The wind howled through the quiet suburban street, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. Leaves skittered across the pavement, and the streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that danced in the twilight. At the edge of the cul-de-sac, near a rusted mailbox, sat a German shepherd. His fur was matted, his ribs faintly visible beneath his coat. But his eyes, sharp, amber, and unwavering, scanned the street with a quiet intensity. He'd been there for days, maybe weeks, unmoving except for the occasional tilt of his head when a car passed by. The neighbors had noticed him, of course. How could they not? A dog like that, sitting alone, was impossible to ignore. But no one approached. No one stopped. They'd glance, whisper, and hurry on, as if the dog carried some unspoken warning. "He's probably lost," Mrs. Carter said one morning, peering through her kitchen blinds as she sipped her coffee. "Someone should call animal control." Lost. "He's too calm for that," her husband muttered, flipping through the newspaper. "Probably belongs to one of those drifters passing through. I'm not getting involved." Across the street, the Nguyen family had their own theories. "He's got a collar," their teenage daughter Lynn pointed out, watching the dog from her bedroom window. "Maybe he's waiting for his owner. Then why's he so skinny?" Her brother scoffed. "If he's got an owner, they're doing a lousy job." Lynn frowned but didn't argue. She thought about tossing him some leftovers, but her mom had already warned her to stay away. "Strays can be dangerous," she'd said. "You don't know where he's been." And so it went. Days turned into nights, and the German shepherd remained, a silent sentinel at the edge of the neighborhood. Kids on bikes would slow down to stare. Their curiosity piqued, but their parents' sharp calls always pulled them back. Delivery drivers would hesitate, eyeing the dog warily before tossing packages and speeding off. Even the local joggers, usually fearless, crossed to the other side of the street when they passed him. There was something about the dog, his stillness, his gaze, that unsettled them. He wasn't aggressive, didn't bark or growl, but he didn't beg for attention either. He just watched. Then came Ethan Walsh. Ethan was new to the neighborhood. A 32-year-old mechanic who'd moved into the small fixer-upper at the end of the street. He wasn't the type to get involved in neighborhood gossip or anything else for that matter. He kept to himself, his days filled with the hum of engines and the clank of tools. But Ethan had a soft spot for dogs. Growing up, he'd had a mutt named Rusty who'd followed him everywhere. And the sight of the German shepherd, alone and ignored, tugged at something deep in his chest. It was a Saturday evening when Ethan first approached the dog. He'd been working on his truck in the driveway, the radio blaring classic rock, when he noticed the shepherd staring at him from across the street. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag, grabbed a bottle of water, and crossed the road, his boots crunching against the gravel. "Hey, buddy," he said softly, crouching a few feet away. "You look like you've seen better days." The dog's ears twitched, but he didn't move. His eyes locked onto Ethan's, steady and unblinking. Ethan noticed the collar, a faded red strip of nylon, worn but intact. There was a tag dangling from it, glinting faintly in the dying light. Ethan hesitated. He knew better than to reach for a strange dog's collar, but something about the shepherd's calm demeanor told him it was safe. "All right, let's see who you belong to," he murmured, inching closer. The dog didn't flinch as Ethan gently lifted the tag. It was old, the engraving barely legible. But as he tilted it toward the streetlight, the words came into focus. "If found, call 555-0123. My name is Max." Ethan frowned. A phone number, a name, but no address. He pulled out his phone and dialed the number, half expecting it to be disconnected. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. A woman's voice, soft but tired, filled the line. "You've reached Sarah. Leave a message." Ethan cleared his throat. "Ah, hi Sarah. My name's Ethan Walsh. I found a German shepherd with a collar that has this number on it. His name's Max, I think. He's been hanging around my street for a while. If he's yours, Give me a call back at 555-9876. He hung up, glancing at Max. Guess we wait, huh? Max tilted his head, as if he understood. Ethan poured some water into his hand and held it out. Max lapped it up gratefully, his tongue rough against Ethan's palm. For the first time, the dog's tail gave a faint wag. Over the next few days, Ethan kept an eye on Max. He brought him food leftover chicken, a bowl of kibble he picked up from the store, and set up a makeshift bed under the awning of the old bus stop where Max liked to sit. The neighbors noticed, of course. Mrs. Carter raised an eyebrow when she saw Ethan carrying a dog bowl. Lin Nguyen watched from her window, a small smile tugging at her lips. But no one else stepped up. No one else called the number on Max's tag. Ethan tried the number again, then a third time. Always voicemail, always the same tired voice. He started to wonder if Sarah, whoever she was, even wanted Max back. But Max didn't act like a dog who'd been abandoned. He didn't whine or pace. He sat, he watched, and when Ethan came by, he'd stand and follow him for a few steps before returning to his post. It was on the 5th day that Ethan noticed something odd. Max's collar had a second tag, smaller and tucked behind the first. It was a thin metal disc engraved with a single word: Hope. No number, no explanation, just hope. Ethan turned the tag over in his fingers, puzzled. "What's your story, Max?" he asked, scratching the dog's ears. Max leaned into his hand, his eyes half closed. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the word hope echoing in his mind. He'd always been a practical guy, fix the problem, move on, but something about Max felt different. It wasn't just a lost dog. It was like Max was waiting for something, or someone, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to figure out what. The next morning, he drove to the local library and asked the librarian, Mrs. Patel, if she could help him search for the phone number. She was a kind woman with a knack for digging up information. And within an hour, she'd found an old newspaper article from a town 2 hours away. The headline read, "Local woman missing after house fire. Dog survives." Ethan's heart sank as he read. Sarah Ellison, 29, had vanished after a fire destroyed her home 6 months ago. Firefighters had found a German Shepherd in the backyard, unharmed but frantic, and assumed he belonged to Sarah. The article mentioned a neighbor, Tom Grayson, who'd taken the dog in temporarily but couldn't keep him long-term. There was a grainy photo of Sarah, woman with dark hair and a warm smile, holding a German Shepherd that looked unmistakably like Max. Ethan thanked Mrs. Patel and drove straight to the address listed in the article. The house was gone, reduced to a charred foundation overgrown with weeds. A for sale sign stood crookedly in the yard. Ethan knocked on the neighbor's door, and an older man, Tom Grayson, answered. "Yeah, I remember Max," Tom said, leaning against the doorframe. "Good dog. Loyal as hell. After the fire, I kept him for a couple of months, but I couldn't afford to feed him forever. I gave him to a shelter up north. Figured they'd find him a home. Did Sarah ever show up?" Ethan asked. Tom shook his head. Not a trace. "Cops thought she might have started the fire herself and took off, but I don't buy it. She loved that dog. Loved her life here. Something wasn't right." Ethan drove to the shelter next, a small brick building with a chain-link yard. The woman at the front desk remembered Max. "He was here for a month," she said. "Sweet dog, but nobody wanted him. Too big, too serious looking. Then one day, he just got out. Broke through the fence somehow. We looked for him, but he was gone." Ethan thanked her and headed back home, his mind racing. Max had escaped the shelter, traveled over 100 miles, and ended up in Ethan's neighborhood. But why? What was he waiting for? When Ethan pulled into his driveway, Max was there, sitting by the mailbox as always. Ethan crouched beside him, his voice low. "You're looking for her, aren't you? For Sarah?" Max's ears perked up at the name, and he let out a soft whine. It was the first sound Ethan had heard him make. Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't know if Sarah was alive, but he knew he couldn't give up on Max. Not now. Over the next week, Ethan posted flyers around town, shared Max's photo on social media, and even contacted a local news station. The story spread quickly. Mystery dog waits for missing owner. People started leaving food and blankets for Max, and Lin Nguyen finally worked up the courage to pet him. Mrs. Carter stopped by with a bag of treats, muttering about how she should have done something sooner. The neighborhood, once indifferent, rallied around the German Shepherd and the man who'd read his tag. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, Ethan's phone rang. He almost didn't answer. Was an unknown number, but something made him pick up. "Is this Ethan Walsh?" a woman's voice asked. It was faint, hesitant, but familiar. "I got your message about Max." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Sarah," there was a long pause. "Yeah, it's me." Sarah's story came out in pieces. She had Dane T started the fire, was an electrical fault, but the loss of her home had broken her. Overwhelmed and ashamed, she'd left town, staying with distant relatives and cutting ties with her old life. She'd thought Max was better off without her, that he'd find a new home. But when she saw the news story about him, she knew she had to come back. Ethan drove to meet her at a diner an hour away. Max sat in the passenger seat, his nose pressed against the window. When they pulled into the parking lot, a woman with dark hair and tired eyes stepped out of a beat-up sedan. Max's tail started wagging before Ethan even opened the door. "Max," Sarah called, her voice breaking. Max bounded toward her, nearly knocking her over. He licked her face, his whole body shaking with joy. Sarah sank to her knees, sobbing into his fur. "I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry." Ethan stood back, his throat tight. He didn't know Sarah's whole story, and he didn't need to. Max had found her. That was enough. The neighborhood threw a small welcome home party for Sarah and Max a week later. Lynn made a banner, and Mrs. Carter baked a cake. Sarah was shy at first, but the warmth of the community sparked by Ethan's persistence eased her back into the world. She and Max moved into a small apartment nearby, and Ethan became a regular visitor, bringing treats for Max and coffee for Sarah. As for Max, he never left Sarah's side again. The tag on his collar, Hope, took on new meaning for everyone who'd been part of his journey. It wasn't just a word. It was a promise kept by a dog who never gave up and a man who dared to read his story.